My name is Emily Ross. I'm 30 years old, and for most of my life, I was the invisible one in my family. The quiet, bookish girl who always seemed to exist just outside the spotlight. The one who kept her dreams to herself, who never rocked the boat, and who somehow ended up always sitting at the kids' table, literally and metaphorically. So when I got the text that I wasn't invited to my mother's birthday dinner, I wasn't surprised. Hurt? Yes. But surprised? No. Let me take you back a week before it happened. It was a Monday afternoon, and I had just wrapped up a strategy call with our product development team. My office was quiet, the sun slanting through the blinds in golden streaks across my desk. I glanced at my phone and saw the family group chat lighting up. I opened it and was greeted by a cascade of emojis and messages about the upcoming birthday dinner for my mom. Madison, my younger sister, was coordinating everything. Of course, she was the family's golden, stylish, always in control of social events. As I scrolled through the messages, talk of flowers, desserts, and matching outfits, one message made me freeze. Madison, just a heads up, Pemily doesn't need to come this year. It'll be more relaxing without drama. 3 laughing emojis followed, courtesy of my brother Josh. I waited. Surely someone would say something. Maybe my mom would step in. Or dad. But they didn't. The conversation moved on, seamlessly, effortlessly, like I had never existed. They started planning, seating arrangements, talked about playlist themes. No one asked if I was okay. No one questioned Madison's decision. I stared at the screen. A slow, cold wave rolled over me, not sadness, but clarity. This was who they had always been. It wasn't the first time I had been excluded, but it was the first time it didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a window one I could finally close, and that's when I remembered something Madison didn't know. Her boyfriend, the one she had introduced at Thanksgiving as Tyler from tech, wasn't just another guy with a flashy watch and startup dreams. He was one of my direct reports. I hadn't told my family about my job for years. Not really. They knew I worked in cybersecurity and had a good position, but they never asked for details. They never wanted to hear about promotions or projects. I had stopped offering, but here's the truth. At 23, I joined a mid-sized cybersecurity firm as a junior analyst. I kept my head down, stayed late, studied on weekends. Over the years, I moved up quietly. I led projects, built teams, delivered results. Now, at 30, I'm a senior vice president at one of the largest cybersecurity firms in the country. I manage 5 departments, including the one Tyler had recently joined as director of product development. He was good, smart, ambitious, a little too eager to impress, but professional. I never mentioned Madison. And apparently, he never connected Eliza Monroe, my professional name, with Emily Ross. The sister Madison loved to mock. That was about to change. The night of the dinner, I stayed home, poured myself a glass of red wine, sat by the window and watched the lights of the city flicker on. My phone stayed silent. No one reached out. Not even Tyler, but I knew I wouldn't be invisible much longer. Tyler's dilemma and the setup. The next morning, my alarm buzzed at 6 a.m. sharp. It was conference week. For the last 2 months, my department had been preparing for the National Cybersecurity Leadership Conference in Atlanta. It was a massive event. Industry leaders, government consultants, tech journalists. I was scheduled to give a keynote presentation alongside one of my rising directors. That rising director, Tyler, we were scheduled to fly out that evening. At 7:30 a.m., my phone lit up. Tyler, morning. Just saw Madison's Insta story. Big family dinner last night. You weren't there. I smiled faintly at the screen. Me? I wasn't invited. There was a long pause. Then he replied, Tyler, wait, what? Why? Me? Asked Madison. I didn't elaborate, and neither did he. But the silence between us was loud. When we boarded the plane later that day, he looked different, less sure of himself. Nervous? Maybe. He didn't bring up the dinner again. But I could see it in his eyes. The unease. The growing realization that the woman he worked for was the same woman his girlfriend had treated, like a family afterthought. On the flight, I reviewed our slides. Tyler sat quietly, occasionally glancing my way. At one point, he leaned over. Should I tell her? I didn't look up. About what? He hesitated. That we work together. That you're my boss. I met his eyes. Do you want to? He hesitated again. Then, I don't know. I nodded and returned to my notes. Then, don't. Let her find out like I did. He said nothing after that. That night, after check-in, we had dinner with 2 department heads and a CTO from a partner firm. Tyler was composed, professional. Madison would have been proud if only she'd known. The next morning, the main event. The keynote stage was massive. Rows of seats stretched out like an ocean. Behind us, a 40-foot screen displayed the speaker list. Onzi AM Senior VP Eliza Monroe and Director Tyler Hensley. I stood backstage in a black suit, hair pinned, heels grounded. Tyler stood beside me, adjusting his tie again and again. Relax, I whispered. We know this material inside and out. He nodded. It's not the talk. It's what happens after. What happens after? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I told Madison I was going to be on stage today. She asked who I'd be presenting with. He swallowed. I said, my VP. She didn't ask your name. I tilted my head. And you didn't offer it. He shrugged. I didn't want to lie. I just avoided the truth. I nodded slowly. They're good at that. Avoiding truth. Just then, the stage manager waved us forward. Showtime, I said. As we stepped onto the stage, applause rippled across the hall. The spotlight hit us like a wall of heat. My name flashed on the screen. Eliza Monroe, Senior Vice President, Vector Technologies. I heard a few murmurs in the crowd. My name had started to carry weight in the industry. Tyler stepped up, introduced himself, and launched into the presentation. He was articulate, focused. We flowed smoothly between our talking points: data security infrastructure, predictive breach analytics, AI integration for cloud protection. But I wasn't thinking about the audience. I was thinking about my family, about the moment Madison would see her boyfriend on stage, standing beside her dramatic sister. Would she recognize me? Would she realize what this meant? And more importantly, what would she do with that realization? The moment of reckoning. As we wrapped our presentation, the applause was louder than expected. Several attendees came forward with questions. A few asked for business cards. One senior executive from a government agency even requested a private briefing. Tyler smiled, clearly energized by the reception, but there was a tightness in his jaw. The weight of what was coming still lingered. Backstage, he checked his phone. I caught the flicker in his expression. Madison, I asked. He nodded slowly, then held up the screen. There was a screenshot of us on stage. The caption read, LOL. Tell me that's not my boyfriend on stage with my sister, who apparently goes by a different name now. Beneath it, comments were rolling in. Friends tagging friends. A few laughing emojis. One said, wait, she's your boss. Tyler groaned. She figured it out. I crossed my arms. Good. He sat down, head in his hands. I should have told her. I just didn't know how. I walked over to the mini fridge, grabbed 2 bottles of water, handed him one. You didn't owe her that. You didn't lie. You just didn't explain what she didn't ask. He looked up. You're not mad? I smiled faintly. Tyler, I've spent the better part of my life watching them pretend I didn't exist. If anything, this was overdue. That night, after the gala dinner, Tyler and I sat on the balcony of the hotel overlooking the city skyline. His phone buzzed again. Madison, he muttered. 6 missed calls. 11 texts. What are you going to do? I asked. He hesitated. I don't know. Then he turned to me. Do you want me to end it? I was quiet for a moment. That's not my call to make. But ask yourself this. Would she be proud of you if you were just a junior associate with no title, no tie? He looked down. That's the difference, I said softly. I want people around me who value substance over status, integrity over image. He nodded slowly. You're right. The next morning, he posted a picture on LinkedIn, us on stage, shaking hands with the caption, proud to work under a leader who teaches by example. Growth isn't just about climbing, it's about who you learn from on the way up. No tags, no shade, just quiet dignity. But it was enough. Madison's reaction came swiftly. A barrage of messages, some angry, some pleading. Accusations of betrayal, claims that I had used Tyler to get attention, demands that he resign from his job. He didn't respond. And neither did I. I had spent too long justifying my presence in rooms they never cared to enter. I wasn't going to apologize for finally standing in the spotlight they refused to see. Instead, I got back to work. 3 more days of meetings, workshops, and planning sessions. And then, the final surprise. A client we had been courting for 6 months, a major logistics conglomerate, finally signed on. It was the biggest contract of Tyler's career so far, and it was under my department. We celebrated that night. With the rest of the team, toasts were made. No one mentioned family, just accomplishments, just respect, just how it should have always been. The fallout and realignment. It was Saturday when I returned home. The trip had been exhausting, but fulfilling. I set my suitcase down, fed my cat, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat down to check my personal messages. 63 unread texts, nearly all from my mother. Some were benign, asking to talk, to explain, to clear the air. Others were less so. You've embarrassed the family, Emily. This is not how we raised you. Do you really think your job gives you the right to humiliate your sister? Humiliate her? I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. For years, I had been accused of being too sensitive, too distant, too cold. And now that I had drawn boundaries and refused to be invisible, I was the villain. The irony wasn't lost on me. A day later, Tyler called. She's calmed down a little, he said, but she's still upset. Let her be. I'm thinking of ending things. You sure? I thought she loved me. But the moment my professional connection to you came up, she accused me of betrayal. She didn't ask how the presentation went, didn't ask about the new deal, just questioned if I was using her. There was silence on the line. People who don't trust your integrity don't deserve your loyalty, I said. He exhaled. Yeah, I needed to hear that. By Tuesday, it was official. They had broken up. And by Thursday, I received a call from an unexpected number. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. She tried again and again. Finally, I answered. What do you want? I asked, more tired than angry, to talk. In person? I sighed. Is this about saving face or seeking truth? There was a pause, maybe both. We met at a quiet cafe on the west side of town. She wore the same pearl earrings I remembered from my childhood, her hands wringing a napkin into a frayed mess. I didn't know, she said softly. Didn't know what? That you were important. I blinked. That I mattered. She looked up, eyes glassy. That you'd become this successful, respected, powerful. That's because you never asked. She swallowed hard. We thought you wanted distance. That you didn't care. I stopped trying. I corrected her. There's a difference. She nodded, slowly. And Tyler, he's one of the most hardworking people I know. And he never let our family ties interfere with work. You should be proud of him. Her eyes dropped. Madison says you stole him. I laughed not because it was funny, but because of how ridiculous it was. He's not a prize, he made a choice. We sat in silence for a few moments. Then she reached across the table. I'd like to rebuild, if you'll let me. I looked at her hand, then at the napkin shreds, then into her eyes. I'm open, I said, but on my terms now. No guilt, no favoritism, no erasing my achievements. She nodded. Fair. We didn't hug. Not then, but the wall cracked. And for the first time in years, I saw her not as a gatekeeper of my past, but as a witness to my growth. The shift in dynamics a week after the cafe meeting, something unexpected happened. Madison showed up at my office. No appointment, no warning. My assistant buzzed me with a hesitant. There's a Madison Ross here to see you. I sighed. Send her in. She entered like she owned the place, which, considering the last time we'd spoken, was almost comical. Clad in designer sunglasses and that carefully curated, effortless look she prided herself on. She paused in front of my desk. This is where you work? She asked, eyes scanning the modern decor and floor-to-ceiling windows. No, this is where I lead, I replied, motioning to the chair across from me. Sit down. She hesitated, then lowered herself slowly into the seat. I didn't come here to fight, she began. Good, because you wouldn't win. Her mouth twisted slightly, unsure whether to smile or glare. I came to apologize, she said, finally. I overreacted. You mean when you publicly accused me of using your boyfriend for clout? She winced. I was embarrassed, she admitted. I didn't know Tyler worked for you. And seeing you up there, commanding the room, with all those people clapping. What? I interrupted. You saw someone you never expected me to become. She nodded. I always thought you were the quiet one, the weird one. I never imagined you'd be the boss. Yeah, she whispered. I leaned back, in my chair. For years, Madison, you called me boring. Said I lacked style. That I didn't get it. And all the while, I was building something you couldn't see. Not because I hid it, but because you didn't look. She swallowed hard. I want us to fix things. Why now? She paused. Because I'm tired of pretending, of performing, of keeping up this aesthetic. You have something real, Em? And I want that too. It was the most honest thing I had heard from her in over a decade. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I stood up, walked over to my bookshelf, and pulled down a framed photo of our parents, my brother, Madison, and me taken years ago. In the image, I was the only one not smiling. I've carried this for a long time, I said, placing it in front of her. And for years, I thought it was proof I didn't belong. But now, I see something else. I see someone who was already growing in a different direction. She looked at the photo, then at me. I was wrong, she said. I nodded.
Yes.
You were? Then? Softer, but I'm willing to try again. If we do it honestly. She exhaled in relief. Deal. As she left, Tyler entered from the adjacent meeting room where he'd been reviewing a project plan. She okay? He asked. She's starting to be. He smiled. You handled that like a pro. I've had years of practice being underestimated. He laughed. They won't be underestimating you again. No, I said, with a calm certainty. They won't. 3 months later, I stood in the center of a grand ballroom, surrounded by some of the most respected names in tech, innovation, and digital security. My company had just finalized a $40 million partnership with a major defense contractor, and the celebration was mine to host. Everything was perfect, the lighting, the food, the champagne, even the soft jazz in the background. But what struck me most wasn't the venue, or the accolades, or the contracts being signed. It was who had walked in, Madison, and with her, our parents. I hadn't invited them. They came as guests of a high-profile investor who, it turned out, was a former college roommate of mine. They had no idea I'd be hosting. I saw the moment they realized. My face was on the entrance banner, alongside a title that, by now, they knew too well: Senior VP, Strategic Innovation and Development, Vector Technologies. Madison froze. My mother reached for her husband's arm. My father, ever the one to pretend composure, simply adjusted his jacket and muttered something to no one in particular. I didn't rush over. I didn't change expression. I stayed in conversation with 2 other VPs, sipping champagne like nothing had happened, because for me, nothing had. This was my life, my world. But a part of me had waited for this moment. After 15 minutes, they approached me. Emily, my mother began, her voice awkwardly formal. This is impressive. Thank you, I said simply, offering a calm smile. Madison cleared her throat. I didn't know you were hosting. I know, I said. My father spoke next. You've built something real here. I nodded. Yes, I have. There was a long pause, full of things unsaid. I'm proud of you, my mother added, a little shakily. I turned to look at her fully for the first time that night. Her eyes shimmered not with pride, but with something closer to shame. Thank you, I said. That means a lot, even now. She reached out, hesitated, and then touched my arm. I'm sorry for how we treated you, for the birthdays, for the dinners, for the years. I didn't say, it's okay, because it wasn't. Instead, I said, I've grown and I've healed, but I won't go back. Madison stepped forward. We don't want you to. The words sat between us like a fragile offering. Tyler joined me then, placing a supportive hand at the small of my back. Madison looked at him, her expression soft. I'm happy for you, she said. That surprised me. Thank you, I replied. As they turned to mingle, I stood still for a moment, letting the weight of it all settle. This was the closure I never thought I'd get, not because they finally saw me, but because I no longer needed them to. They had come into my world on my terms, and I had greeted them not with revenge or spite or the desperate hunger for validation, but with strength, grace, boundaries. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the black sheep. I was the storm they didn't see coming, and I was finally, unapologetically, home.